patience while we wait on the clerk of the board to get a few administrative items done for us.
Or we can go ahead and proceed with the agenda, and then we should assess when we get to item number 6.
Let's proceed with the agenda if you're okay with that. And
Absolutely.
And see if we can get some business done. And in the interest of having all of us have all the materials in front of us that you will be distributing, you can just hold us up at that time. If we do not, then have that when we get to the item.
Sounds good.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what Commissioner Williams. Okay. With that, I will call to order this January 17th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, a land use meeting. Item number 1 is staff emergency items.
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1, staff emergency items.
Item number 2.
Item number 2 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. I'm unaware of any changes or postponements for this meeting, and our next meeting will be scheduled on Tuesday, January 24th at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Item number 3.
Item number 3 is public comment on items not on the agenda. Madam Chair, I'm aware that Mr. Tom Martin would like to speak on an agenda item not scheduled on the agenda.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Martin, if you would like to sign in, state your name, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. You'll have 3
Afternoon,
minutes.
Commissioners. I'm here once again. I wanted to commend you on many of the things that you do in the county. You are doing a lot of things very well and for the benefit of the county. I just wanted to commend you on your efforts. I'm not trying to demonize you or making enemies. I want you to know that. We do have differences, but I understand that you do a lot of good also. As the county keeps growing, the growth is pushing into the sensitive or key areas of our county that make our county identifiable and unique to the rest of the state and the United States. People in this community, I started working in El Paso County at age 12. People work their entire lives to be able to move into one of these unique areas because they're very large lots. They're rural in nature. And people move into those because they're unaltered by what I consider sprawl. As the county continues to grow, we need to be more careful when approving these particular subdivisions because they ruin entire communities as well as neighborhoods, entire townships. They ruin the entire identity of an area. I'm not against growth at all, even though I did grow up with ZPG. Have any of you been a resident long enough to know what ZPG is? In the 1970s, the state of Colorado voters voted for zero population growth and passed it on a statewide basis. That means the voters in this state at that point in time didn't want anyone to move in here until someone either passed or moved out. Obviously, the ACLU had a different opinion of that after it was voted into law, but it's been my entire lifetime that we knew what was going to happen to Colorado. This is nothing new. I'm running out of time. We'll take this up again. I'll be here many, many, many more times, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any other citizens wishing to comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, are there any online? Hearing none online, we will move to item number 4.
Item number 4 is the land use consent calendar.
Okay, the land use consent calendar consists of item 4A. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve items 4A.
Second.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is the called up consent calendar. There are no items called up.
And item number 6.
Item number 6 is land use regular item, map amendment rezone, Homestead North filing number 3, a request by Classic SRJ Land LLC and SR Land LLC for approval of a map amendment rezoning of 41.63 acres from RR5 residential rural to RS 6000 residential suburban. The parcels are located north of the northeast corner of the Briargate Parkway and Vollmer Road intersection and is within Section 28, Township 12 South, Range 65 West of the 6 p.m. The subject parcels are within the Sterling Ranch sketch plan area. This item was recommended for approval on the Planning Commission consent calendar 8-0. A concurrent preliminary plan is requested with this map amendment. A combined staff report has been provided. Parcel numbers 522800030 and 522800038. Commissioner District Number 2, P-22-015. Carrie Parsons, Senior Planner, Planning and Community Development.
Thank you. And do we have all the items we need to consider this item at this time?
I believe I have one additional document that's just a single page. I can get it printed and we can let Ms. Parsons begin.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Carrie Parsons, Planning and Community Development. With permission, Chair, I think it would be recommended to read the item preliminary plan, which is agenda item number 7, into the record. Staff has requested that these items be heard together. The staff report was published as a combination staff report, and I would defer to the county attorney's office if that would be the appropriate avenue.
Yes, I believe so.
With that, I'll read item number 7, preliminary plan, Homestead North, filing number 3, preliminary plan. A request by Classic SRJ Land LLC and SR Land LLC for approval of the Homestead North at Sterling Ranch, filing number 3, preliminary plan to create 77 single-family residential lots. The 40.83 acre development area is zoned RR5 residential rural. A concurrent map amendment rezone to RS 6000 residential rural is also requested. The subject to map amendment, The subject property is within the Sterling Ranch sketch plan area, which depicts a density of 2 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density is 1.8 dwelling units per acre. The parcels are located north of the northeast corner of the Volmer Road and Briargate Parkway intersection and is within Section 28, Township 12 South, Range 65 West of the 6 p.m. This item was recommended for approval and the Planning Commission called up consent calendar 8-0. Adjacent property owners were concerned the development was a multi-dwelling request. Additional concerns regarding density, loss of views, and notification procedures were discussed. The requested preliminary plan includes single-family detached lots, open space, drainage, and utility tracts only. Parcel numbers 52280, 00030, and 522800038, Commissioner District 2, SP-22-007, Carrie Parsons, Senior Planner, Planning and Community Development.
Thank you. Okay, as read into the record, staff requests that these two items be heard together. A combination staff report and presentation has been prepared by both the applicant and your staff. Additionally, I want to remind the body that the map amendment would need to be approved in order to approve the preliminary plan. If there are those that are participating remotely, if you could please email on the email address on the screen so that we can get you into the queue. Thank you very much. Specifically, this is, again, a request to rezone the property from rural residential with a 5-acre minimum lot size to residential suburban, which would have a 6,000 square feet lot size. This is a request to propose 77 single-family detached residential lots and 7 tracts. The applicants are requesting a finding of water sufficiency with the preliminary plan. They're also requesting a finding of, if the board should make that finding of water sufficiency, they would be requesting administratively approved final plats. Additionally, I should remind the board that the applicant or the county attorney's office has agreed and made a finding of record. Gosh, I'm sorry. I had too much caffeine. My brain is going faster than my mouth. I do apologize. The county attorney's office has recommended a finding of water sufficiency. The El Paso County Public Health has made a favorable finding regarding water quality. Again, I apologize. The applicants have also requested to perform early grading or pre-site development grading for the area within the preliminary plan. And that concludes the request. I just want to provide a quick vicinity map before I ask the permission from the chair to have the county attorney read the approval criteria into the record so that there is a general idea of where this property is located. The rezone request and the preliminary plan request are within this red area here. To the north is planned unit development for the existing retreated Timber Ridge filings 1 and 2. Filing 3 is in review, and that would be anticipated to be an administrative final plat review. Those water findings were made at the preliminary plan stage. To the south is the existing Homestead North filings 1 and 2, which is currently underway. Overall, this area along this boundary here is part of the overall approved Sterling Ranch sketch plan. And it is anticipated west of Volmer in this proposed area here that shortly you will be voting on the Janes sketch plan, which this applicant is also affiliated with. And with permission, Chairman, I'd like to ask the county attorney to read the approval criteria for a map amendment or rezone and the preliminary plan into the record.
Please, thank you. Ms. Seego.
Very bright up here. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lori Seego, Senior Assistant County Attorney. As Ms. Parsons stated, we will be presenting everything together, but you do have 2 separate applications in front of you, and they will require separate motions. So for the rezone application, the criteria for approval are on the screen in front of you, and I will summarize them for you. In order to approve the application, you would need to find that the application is in general conformance with the El Paso County Master Plan, or if it's not in conformance with the master plan, you could still approve the application if you find that there's been a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood since the land was last zoned. Other criteria are that the rezoning is in compliance with all applicable statutory provisions, that the proposed land use or zone district is compatible with the existing and permitted land uses and zone districts in all directions, that the site is suitable for the intended use, including the ability to meet the standards in Chapter 5 of the Land Development Code. The second application on which you will be taking an action today is the preliminary plan. The criteria for approval for a preliminary plan are again also on the screen in front of you, and I will summarize them for you. They are that the proposed subdivision is in general conformance with the master plan and consistent with the purposes of the Land Development Code, that the subdivision is in conformance with the subdivision design standards and any approved sketch plan, that a sufficient water supply has been acquired in terms of quantity, quality, and dependability, that a public sewage disposal system has been established, or if other methods of sewage disposal are proposed, that it complies with state and local laws and regulations, that all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions that present hazards or require special precautions have been identified, and the subdivision is compatible with those conditions, that adequate drainage improvements complying with state law and regulations are provided, that the location and design of the public improvements proposed in connection with the subdivision are adequate to serve the needs and mitigate the effects of the development, that legal and physical access is or will be provided to all parcels within the subdivision, that the proposed subdivision meets all other applicable sections of Chapters 6 and 8 of the Land Development Code, that the proposed subdivision has established an adequate level of compatibility by incorporating the 5 features or design elements on the screen in front of you, that necessary public services, including police and fire protection, recreation, utilities, open space, and transportation are or will be available to serve the subdivision, that the subdivision provides evidence to show that the proposed methods for fire protection comply with Chapter 6 of the code, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seego.
All right, in terms of the Planning Commission, this item was voted, both items, excuse me. The rezone was heard on consent. It did stay on the consent calendar, and it was voted for approval unanimously. The preliminary plan was pulled off to the called up consent calendar. The items discussed at the public hearing were density, loss of use, loss of open area, size of the lots proposed within the preliminary plan, and that there was a rumor going around that it was a multifamily development, not single family. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation 8-0 to recommend approval to this body. Additionally, Ms. Rowe, I think there was a glitch with AgendaNet, so she has now provided you a petition that was received. So you have that in the record for your review, and I apologize that Bridget and I had a glitch there. I do apologize for that. Those items have also been uploaded into EDARP when they were received last week. And Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to request that the applicant make their presentation to this body. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrea Barlow with NES, representing the applicant, SR Land LLC. I'll just wait for my presentation to come up. This one. Thank you. I can do it myself now. All right. Okay, thank you. Okay. Not okay. Do I have control with this? Okay, here we go. So the site is located, Carrie already provided a vicinity map, not too far forward. It's in the northern and western portion of the entire Sterling Ranch master plan area, which is a sketch plan area, which is denoted by the dashed red line. The approved Homestead North filings 1 and 2 lie immediately to the south, and the retreat at Timber Ridge lies to the north and wraps around the eastern side of the property. We are, just a clarification, we're asking for a rezone of 41.6 acres from RR5 to RS 6000. And then the accompanied preliminary plan is for 40.8 acres. The difference is that we are rezoning to the center line of the right-of-way. So the rezone area is a little larger than the actual preliminary plan area. And we're proposing 77 lots on that 40.8 acres. Just looking at the zoning, as you can see immediately to the south, the RS 6000 zoning, that's the zoning that was approved for the Homestead filing 1 and 2, Homestead North filing 1 and 2, so that's a recent approval. So our RS 6000 zoning that we're proposing is a continuation of that and is consistent with that zoning. The pink area that you see to the north and east is the retreat at Timber Ridge. That's a fairly recent approval insofar as it occurred about probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but when the Sterling Ranch master plan, sketch plan was approved in 2008, the retreat at Timber Ridge was zoned RR5, so for 5-acre lots. So that PUD zoning has changed the character of that area. And it was really partly because of the Sterling Ranch sketch plan's existence that that retreat at Timber Ridge zoning was approved as a continuation of the suburban residential density in that area. And the retreat at Timber Ridge in itself provided that rural to suburban transition with 2.5-acre lots on its northern and western side. So the transition to the Black Forest and the more rural areas to the north was incorporated within the retreat at Timber Ridge. I think that's important to understand in the context of some of the comments that have been made by neighbours. Also, as Carrie mentioned, the Janes property just to the west, a sketch plan has been submitted and reviewed, and we are hoping to go to hearing to Planning Commission in February. That plan includes also suburban residential with some transitional density on the northern boundary and western boundary. So I just want to talk a little bit about this preliminary plan. So we have 77 lots on 40.8 acres. That's a density of 1.88 units per acre. The lots are within the 22 acres, and there's quite a lot of area. There's 7 acres of right-of-way, and there's 12 acres there of detention, parks, and open space alongside the creek. So in terms of some of the requirements of the preliminary plan criteria to respect natural features, we preserve the creek area, we provide more openness to the creek. The lots that are along that boundary, as you can see, are all kind of sideways on to the boundary and not facing the creek, and they provide openness at the end of the cul-de-sacs to provide access to trails that will go through the creek alongside the creek area, including the regional trail. So the regional trail goes along the west side of Sand Creek. In addition, the lot sizes average 0.28 acres, which is about 12,400 square feet. They range from approximately 9,000 square feet up to half an acre. The half an acre lots are on that northern boundary, which is intended to provide a transition with the buffer to the larger lots on the north side of Poco within the retreat at Timber Ridge. On the east side of the creek within the retreat at Timber Ridge, the lot sizes average, start at around 12,000 square feet and are generally around that 12,000 to 2,500. And I'll show that in a little bit more detail in a future slide. So we believe this plan, which is a continuation of Homestead North filing 1 and 2, where the lots are a little smaller. We've provided that progression of density. It is consistent with the preliminary plan review criteria. And I just wanted to go back to the sketch plan. So the sketch plan shows this area as having a 2 dwelling unit per acre density. And we are proposing a density of 1.88 units per acre. There is nothing with the 2 units per acre that requires a half-acre lot. When you look at density, you have to understand that a plan for development includes right-of-way, it includes detention areas, it includes ponds. So by the time, ponds, it includes open space and trails. So by the time you net out all of that area, to achieve that 2 units per acre, you're going to have smaller lots than half-acre. Because if you had half-acre lots across that entire area, you wouldn't have anything else. You wouldn't have any streets, you wouldn't have any open space or detention. So that isn't the intent of the sketch plan, to provide half-acre lots in that area. It is a 2 unit per acre density, which, as you can see, is lower than the 3 to 5 unit per acre density just to the south and to the east. So it was intended as a transition at that time, which was, as I said earlier, to rural residential 5-acre lots, because the whole of that property that is now the retreat at Timberidge was all rural residential 5-acre lots. It wasn't actually developed as 5-acre lots, that was the zoning. So that very different context to today, since we have now an approved PUD with suburban residential densities in that area transitioning to more rural densities to the north. So in a nutshell, we have met the density requirements of the sketch plan, the buffer requirements that the sketch plan put in place, and so we believe we're consistent with the sketch plan, which is one of the preliminary plan criteria. El Paso County Master Plan. You are familiar with the recent approval of this document. The yellow area that you see on this plan, which you can see extends north, it goes north to about Burgess Road, and to the west is all the suburban residential place type category. So this entire area is intended as suburban residential in the master plan. That proposes density, primary land use, and this is important to understand, it's a primary land use, not the only land use. There can be higher density residential, but the primary land use is single family detached housing, and less than 5 units per acre between that 2.5 and 5, 2.5 acre lots and 5 units per acre. So we are meeting the objectives of the master plan. It's also an area that is identified for new development and areas that will be significantly transformed. So there was no suggestion that any of this area within that the yellow is intended to stay as is. It is anticipated that this will transform into a more developed area. So for that reason, we believe that the proposed rezone and preliminary plan is consistent with the master plan for the county, and which was recently adopted as well. So I just want to go through some of the neighbour comments from the petition, which I believe you now have just received, but I can probably maybe highlight some of the aspects of it for you. The yellow stars identify the location of the people making comment. There were 61 individuals representing 30 households who signed the petition. And this is really a summary of their main comments. Inadequate notification of the project. I'll talk briefly to that, although that's probably best coming from the county representatives. But as a requirement of the submittal, we are obliged to notify all immediately adjacent landowners. So the properties that are immediately adjacent on the east side and on the north would have been notified. And as part of that notification, they get information about how to find the project on EDARP, who to contact, either myself or Ms. Parsons. And so that notification goes out to immediately adjacent neighbours. And that is the responsibility of the applicant upon the first submittal. And then with the notification of the hearings, that responsibility is on the county to send out notification to adjacent neighbours. We now, although there's been a change in the county system, we are now responsible to post the site with a poster, and we did that, and there should be a poster still posted at the corner of Poco and Volmer. So I think that's how many people knew about the project. So that notification is per statutory requirement for the hearings. It is not statutory requirement for submittals, but we do it as one of the procedures which the county asks us to do. loss of views and paid lot premiums for views. So I'll tackle this in two ways. First of all, there were comments made at the Planning Commission hearing that there was a lot premium for views. I've verified this with Classic, who are the developer of the retreat at Timbridge, and Vantage, who also are selling homes there. And they have a very specific clause in their contracts which indicates that lot premiums are not paid for views. They are paid for adjacency to open space. And the properties that back onto Sand Creek were the beneficiaries of that open space. And the clause in the contract is quite clear that the views are not protected. State law does not protect views. The county code does not protect views. So I just wanted to clarify that they were not, premiums were not paid for views, they were paid for adjacency to open space. And I do have representatives with me from Classic Homes who can address that further if needed. Regarding the actual impact on views, that's why I was talking earlier about the orientation of the lots that we don't have. Unlike the retreat at Timbridge, which you can see is a row of lots all facing west, we don't have a similar row of lots all facing east. We have lots that are oriented sideways with openness at the cul-de-sacs. So there are really only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots that will have adjacency to the open space. And then there is between 260 and 290 feet between the back of the lots and the side of the lots. So there is quite a substantial open area between the two developments, which will provide opportunity for views. And in this location, with the mountains being so distant, the views are pretty much easy to achieve if you are facing a westward direction in any event. So I think the reality of loss of views is not really there. They will be able to continue to have views of the mountains, and they did not pay lot premiums for views. Traffic increases and safety concerns. We have prepared traffic studies throughout this process for the entirety of Sterling Ranch and for this particular project. There will be improvements to Volmer Road. There are obviously planned improvements to connect Briargate through this development all the way over to Meridian. Through the adjacent farm development, Briargate, Stapleton will come through this, the south of here, through Sterling Ranch, to the west, through the Janes property, all the way to Black Forest, and then we'll connect to Briargate in Wolf Ranch. So there are some long-term plans for significant road improvements in this area. And a little further south, within Sterling Ranch, there will be the completion of the Mark Shuffle extension, which will then go through an adjacent property, again, connect to Black Forest, and then to Research Parkway in Wolf Ranch. So these larger infrastructure changes will significantly improve traffic in this area, as well as I said, improvements planned for Volmer Road, which are final plans are currently under the review process and will soon be approved. So those measures are all factored in with the larger Sterling Ranch development. Insufficient information about the nature of the project. There was some confusion, which I hope we clarified at Planning Commission, that this is not intended to be multifamily residential. It is single family detached on fairly large lots. The information about the project is on EDARP. That was in the notification information, so that information is available. Further changes could be made if rezoning is approved. So we have a rezoning for RS 6000 before you, so that means our plans have to be in accordance with that zoning. So at a minimum, our lot sizes have to be 6,000 square feet. RS 6000 zoning does not allow multifamily residential development. So we would be looking at a single family residential development of this nature. In addition to that, we would have to also meet the sketch plan requirement of 2 units per acre. So with that said, there is very little change that could take place within those parameters, which would be significantly different from this. And if we were to make a change that is significantly different, we would possibly have to rezone to accommodate it or amend the sketch plan. At the very minimum, we would have to submit an amendment to the preliminary plan. So there is a process for that. It's not just something we can do without going through a process with the county. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody that there is a process to go through. Wildlife displacement, they're really, given the surrounding development to the south that's taking place and the existing developments on the retreat at Timber Ridge, there's very little wildlife on this particular site. It's been largely displaced in this area through the retreat at Timber Ridge development and the Sterling Ranch development. Limited green space on the property. I think I noted in my previous slide that we have 12 acres of land that isn't part of the lots or right of way. So that includes landscaping. There's a substantial open space area along the creek, and then there are open space tracks that include a park and a detention area, which includes trails alongside it to connect to the trail. So we do have a substantial amount of open space within this development, approximately almost 30% as can be seen. Limited green space, oh, sorry, I just covered that one, apologies. Infrastructure, services, capacity, etc. So water and wastewater to be provided by the Falcon Area Water and Wastewater Authority. We have approval letters from them will serve letters, and as you heard from Carrie, a finding of water sufficiency from the county attorney. The schools, there was references to school buses and school capacity. The Sterling Ranch development as a whole is dedicating 3 school sites in total, a 12-acre elementary school, a 35-acre K-8 school to District 20, and then a 12-acre elementary school to D49, based on the requirements that the districts had at the time of the sketch plan approval. And we're working through those land dedications right now for the first couple of schools. So schools are provided for. The fire department reviews these plans. They don't have any concerns about the capacity, and the snow removal, I believe, was a reference to existing Timber Ridge streets, which is a matter for the Metropolitan District and the county. So that is not a direct result of this project. The project may fail and become an eyesore. We are not moving forward with projects at this point which we don't think we can complete. It is a continuation of Homestead North 1 and 2, so it is a natural progression. It will be the next in line for development in Sterling Ranch, so there is a limited likelihood of the project failing or stopping at this point. There are other developments that we're moving forward with on the east side of the creek as well. So this whole area is moving forward at a rapid pace. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just want to summarize by saying that it's an appropriate transitional land use and progression in zoning per the existing approvals in the area. It's consistent with the sketch plan, it's consistent with the master plan, and we believe it meets all the criteria for both the rezone and the preliminary plan.
Excellent, thank you. With that, do we have any questions of staff or the applicant from the commissioners? Commissioner Vanderweer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just looking at the map, and I see on the north and the northwest, you've got larger properties, and I presume that is for a transition.
Yes.
But when I look at lot 57 to 62, they seem to be more aligned with the smaller lot sizes that are in the central area of the development. So what is the rationale for smaller lots there?
So we are providing a gradual transition through the entirety of Homestead, 1 and 2, and then 3, which this is. So there are smaller lots on the south side. None of the lots are much less than 9,000 square feet. So they may look smaller in relation to the larger lots on the north side, but there's still a minimum of 9,000 square feet, and they average 12,400 square feet, which as I noted earlier, the lots to the east in the retreat at Timber Ridge are a similar size, and I think that was probably evident on the previous slide when you see the 12,000 square foot lots on the east side to the lots in this development. There are 1 or 2 that are slightly smaller, but they are larger than the lots on the south, to the south in Homestead 1 and 2, which range more in the 6,000 to 7,000, 8,000 range. So that progression of density is going to the north with the half-acre lots and the buffer on the just to the south of Poco.
Okay, and then on the far left, to the left of that, between that and I believe it's Vollmer Road, I see like some kind of a buffer space. I don't know if that's required as a result of an easement or if that's part of deliberate planning, and I don't know what the curvy line is in there. Maybe that's a trail or something?
Yes, so it is. It
Okay.
is a trail, and that open area is a combination of two things. It's a combination of a buffer, which is a 50-foot buffer along the entirety of Vollmer within Sterling Ranch. That is a continuation of that buffer, and also there is an element of that which is right-of-way dedication for the widening of Vollmer Road.
Okay, thank you.
And ultimately, Vollmer Road, I think up to Poco, but I think the county could correct me on this if I'm wrong, is planned for an urban cross-section, which will include curb, gutter, and sidewalk.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions from board members? Okay. With that, our process here is to head into the public comment phase. Oh, sorry, staff. Thank you.
Chair, with permission, staff would like to close out staff's presentation. Thank you. Just a little bit more details on the background for the body and those in the audience. Also, just a quick reminder, there was a question in the audience from an applicant. The email address to participate in the hearing, I'm going to back up so I can put that back on the screen. There's some folks watching remotely that wanted to participate, so let me back up. Oops, I did it too fast. I don't have control. Thanks, Blake. So for those of you watching, if you would like to get into the queue, if you could please email this with your name and telephone number so that we can call you into the hearing. Thank you. A little bit of background just to re-clarify for the record. The original Sterling Ranch sketch plan was approved in 2008. This particular area of the sketch plan has not been amended throughout the years. So this has remained consistent. It's important to notice the school sites that are going to be dedicated within this sketch plan. Those have morphed. And so those minor amendments do include the moving of the school sites. As we progress and work with District 20, they've requested that we work with the applicants and the developers to move those school sites where they're more appropriate for the district's needs. And so the latest approval, the minor amendment for the sketch plan, does reflect those movements of the school sites in blue. And forthcoming to this body will be a school land dedication a request between this body, the Board of County Commissioners, the school district, and the applicant to kind of codify that as it relates to the required school land fees that would have been required, but instead they're going to dedicate land. So at the final plats, they won't be paying fees because they're dedicating those lands. The applicants are responsible to put that infrastructure right up to the school. So although they won't be installing the internal roads that the school would need, they will be providing those major arterials that adjoin those school sites. And the water and wastewater and utilities then are in those major right-of-ways. So they come right up to those tracts of lands when they go through the final plat process and those associated construction drawings. I just wanted to clarify for the record, because I know it was a concern of those in the audience. Let's see here. And then let's see, moving forward. So just for clarification, the rezone map, the acreage is a little bit larger because we have asked them to clean up the zoning in the right-of-way for Vollmer. So that way it's going to match the zoning of this property to RS 6000. So we don't end up having a sliver, a spite strip of zoning in the rural residential 5-acre as the property develops around it. So that is the reason that there is a difference in acreage there. The preliminary plan map on your screen, I do want to point out that the applicants have depicted on the landscape set of the preliminary plan, which is very difficult to see in your backup and when printed out at 8.5 by 11. There is a regional trail corridor that was requested by our Parks Department that is depicted on the west side of this open space area. It actually connects into the sidewalk system here, and then we'll cross at POCO into the retreat Timber Ridge for those that want to utilize the sidewalk. Additionally, it will also join to the north and kind of dead end at the POCO for those that are looking more for a more rural trail experience. Staff, as indicated in your backup material, did find that the applicant has made compliance with the master plan place type for the suburban residential, which is primarily single-family detached homes with some supporting land use for multifamily and minor commercial serving those developments. Again, this is an area of change, so we would expect new development to impact the character of this area significantly per our master plan. I do want to back up, if with permission, Chair. I think it's important because the applicant brought it up to provide some further clarification for this body, if I may. I'm just going to go to this vicinity map. The retreat at Timber Ridge, at the time that was approved, it was prior to our current master plan that was adopted in 2021. So when staff reviewed that application, we reviewed it against the previous small area plan known as the Black Forest Preservation Plan. And that plan at the time did recommend that as the timbered area and as the timbered area went away and it progressed south towards the Briargate Stapleton corridor, which is right here, this is the Briargate Stapleton corridor. So as we came out of the trees here, that previous plan recommended 5 acres down to 2.5 acres. So in the retreat at Timber Ridge, staff worked with the developer and owners, and we'd had 35-acre parcels on the west side of Walmart to accommodate that timbered area in the previous plan. And then north of on the very north end of the retreat at Timber Ridge, and I apologize, you can't see it here, but in this area, there was a 5-acre requirement for lots there, and then it kind of transgressed down into the 2.5 acres here to be compliant with that previous small area plan, and then those more urban lots then are, as you see here, were the about 12,000 square feet lots on average. So with that said, I know that there was some concerns by the neighbors that this wasn't consistent with that previous small area plan. That being said, actually, this would still be consistent with that because we're not in that timbered area and we would be in that more urban corridor for that Black Forest Preservation Plan if it were still active. But again, it is not. But I wanted to provide that correlation for this body and those in the audience because it has been brought up several times. Are there any questions on that? Okay, thanks. Thanks for letting me do that, Chair. I appreciate it. I'm going to give it a minute to catch up. I think it's a little stuck. Okay, great. Okay, the water master plan. So this area is within the Falcon Region 3, which is expecting to be the growth area in El Paso County. And as indicated previously, the state engineer did make a finding of water sufficiency. The county attorney has made a recommendation as well, and that backup material is in your packet. In terms of traffic and transportation, with permission, Chair, I'd like to ask Ms. Durham to come up and present her engineering slides.
Good afternoon, Charlene Durham with EPC Engineering. In front of you is our slide that gives a rough general location for the roads and access. As you can see, filing 3 is not going to connect to Volmer at all. There is a connection located in filing 2 just south. And then below that, there is, I believe it's just a right in, right out that comes into filing 1, and then the major access with Briargate and Volmer. The only direct access is to the north off of Poco. Everything else is internal to the filings 1 and 2 for Homestead North. This parcel is going to generate approximately 727 new daily traffic trips. And there is approximately 4,500 linear feet of public, urban, local roadways. All roads will be public, and they are being built to the El Paso County standards. Per the traffic study that was provided with this submission, this filing will be responsible for additional improvements for offsite. There is a very large table in that with obviously Briargate, Volmer Road itself, Mark Shuffle, and all those bigger improvements that were talked about earlier. And this development will also be subject to the county road impact fees. As for our drainage, you can see that the highlighted area is actually for all 3 filings of Homestead North. Just to the east is the Sand Creek, which is in a FEMA floodplain. Those improvements are being taken care of under a separate submittal. And as improvements go, those will need to make sure that they are done. And those improvements will be used to help offset any drainage and bridge fees that the filing does have.
I'm going to stop you right there for a second. I believe we have a question on transportation.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, no worries. Back to the previous chart. You know, we usually are interested in whatever new developments might be coming forward, making sure they have multiple ingresses and egresses. 2, you know, is a pretty common one. You've got one of those on the north end. Is there a second one here? I mean, there's the filing 2 road, but I don't know if that construction is completed or not yet, or how will there be a second way to get in and out?
Well, filing 2 is ahead of filing 3. So is it anticipated that filing 2 will be done? And if not, then I'm sure we'll be working with the development to make sure there's at least a temporary access, probably following what would be that future roadway for filing 2.
Okay. Because, you know, if this were to go forward and filing, for whatever reason, the northern part of filing 2 there doesn't get completed, or at least the roads don't get completed, you got 77 houses trying to get in and out of one entrance, and that's a lot, I think.
Correct, yeah. And that's why we try to make sure there's 2. And like we said, so as of right now, filing 1 and 2 are ahead in the queue. So it is anticipated for them to be done. And then if not, then as if filing 3 gets ahead, that will be worked out to ensure that there's 2 places of access.
Maybe just one last question. And with that in mind, is that a standard requirement within our land use code, or would something like that need to be established as another condition or something? I'm not sure it would make sense. You know, it might be the timing will work out, assuming 3 were to pass. The timing would work out where 2 would be completed first. Therefore, it isn't an issue at all. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Thank you, Chair. Great question. Or, sorry, Vice Chair.
Former Chair,
That's old language from 2022. Yes, so the Land Development Code would require, if more than 25 lots, there would be 2 points of access. It is very common for your staff, the developer, and the no longer PCD, but DPW inspections team to work with the applicants to make sure, as we're doing the construction of the roadways with those administrative final plats, that we are depicting and building the roads in order. So for instance, filing 1 will be constructed first, and then filing 2. If for some reason there was a halt with filing 2, but they wanted to move to filing 3, we would require a temporary easement to be provided so that we had more than 2 points of access for those lots. And for an example of how this would work, in Sterling Ranch to the south, and I believe it was Homestead North filing number 2, we actually put a temporary easement through a lot so we could gain a second point of access. And then when that access was constructed, Sterling Ranch Road, we were able to lift that temporary access and they could build on that lot. So we do work with the applicants and their construction team, with our inspectors throughout this process very closely to ensure that public safety is addressed.
Okay, so if there were to, if that particular type of situation were to arise, which would be contingent on 3 being passed and something happening to 2, we don't need a condition or anything like that. That's because it's part of land use code. That would be done automatically with the staff working with the developer. Is that correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
sir, we do get financial assurances when we record a final plat through that subdivision improvement agreement that does guarantee that they do provide those public roadways and any necessary infrastructure.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, any others? Okay, so we were talking about drainage. The Sand Creek Channel is to the east. And as I mentioned before, those improvements are being provided under a separate cover, Sand Creek Channel improvements, that actually runs the entire length of the Sterling Ranch development. The internal drainage will be provided by a private on-site storm sewer system, and it will be treated and released into a private full spectrum detention located at the south portion of the development. And it is providing detention for the entire subdivision. And this development did also request pre-development site grading. Before that can happen, the grading and erosion control plan, financial assurances specific to grading and erosion control procedures will need to be approved, along with a stormwater management plan and the erosion stormwater quality plan. And that's before any site grading can be provided. Any other questions regarding grading, drainage?
And then, Chair, with your permission, there was a question that was brought up that Mr. Maston of Public Works was going to address. So if that's okay with you, I'd like to ask Mr. Maston to address that.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Kevin Maston, Director of Public Works. The beginning, towards the end of last week, and then yesterday and over the weekend, it was discussed why not the Department of Public Works has not plowed roads in this area. The reason those roads were not plowed is that the roads have not gone through preliminary acceptance yet. We do not put our vehicles on roads that have not gone through preliminary acceptance. Some of the roads have gone through preliminary inspection, and a preliminary inspection is when the developer gets a punch list and then uses that punch list to make any corrections to the road before we do preliminary acceptance. The reason we do not go on roads that have not been, have been through preliminary acceptance is because when we go through with our plow trucks loaded with chains on them, we can damage those roads. We can damage roads that we are not yet responsible for, and it creates liability for the county. All that being said, the developer does have a plan to address those roads to ensure that snow is removed through a contract that they already have with landscapers that do snow removal for them. So any of the issues that were brought up regarding lack of snow removal is not due to our drivers not going to a road that we have not preliminary accepted. With that being said, when a road does go through preliminary acceptance, it takes between 2 and 4 weeks for that information to get entered into GIS, maps made, and get it to the drivers so they know which roads they are responsible for, to ensure that they are on roads that we are authorized to plow. All of that being said, anybody that's in the audience, anybody that's listening, I would encourage you that if you have any sort of issues, please use Citizen Connect. Just go to El Paso County Citizen Connect, submit what your concern is, and we'll address it immediately at that point, and we can make any clarifications at that time. We have found that information that's put on Facebook, whatever it's called, neighborhood, whatever, is very often incorrect. And it ends up spreading a rumor mill that's not accurate. And we get a lot of people that get upset about things that are just simply not based on truth. So if you do have questions, please use Citizen Connect and we'll address the issue, address the situation immediately.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes, so I don't know, I know that the retreat at Timber Edge was approved before I was a commissioner 5 years ago. So how long has that punch list been out there and when can the residents expect it to be finished?
I've been talking with our inspector that's working that. It should be very, very soon. They're in the final stages of doing that.
Okay.
And I would expect, want to put a specific time on it, but it will be very, very soon. Unfortunately, it will not be before 7 o'clock this evening when the snow starts flying.
And the guarantee we have that that punch list is eventually approved is probably some sort of deposit on with planning and community development. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you say that
The
again?
guarantee that that punch list will eventually be finished. Is that
It will be finished, yes. Yeah, the punch list will get finished. It will go through. We've never had a situation that I'm aware of where we weren't able to get a punch list to resolution to where we can accept that road. We do have situations in the county that are dating back to the 60s that I'm aware of, where we've had people that have come through, they've gotten plats approved, but they've never completed the development. We have residents that have purchased property on these roads, and there was an expectation there that the county would come and maintain a road that was never accepted, but that was because the developer never completed the development itself. But anything, once we get to the point where we're working punch lists, it's just getting to the end, no different than purchasing a home and going through your punch list to get everything taken care of on your home when you purchase it.
Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Masson, I appreciate actually your coming up here and asking or providing some input, because that was a question that was on my mind and you've actually answered it. But one other quick question. So you're recommending going to Citizen Connect. I think that's great. But if a citizen uses Citizen Connect and informs the county of, hey, why you're not plowing my road or whatever, but it is not one of our roads, it's actually still a developer road and the responsibility of the developer. What do you do with that? Do you, I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear it from you. Do you take that input from a citizen and send it to the developer and let the developer know that there was a citizen comment about the road?
Yes, yeah, we will have that happen at times. We will actually get in touch with the developer, let the developer know that we have a citizen that's concerned with whatever the issue is on the road. And then sometimes we'll get things put in Citizen Connect where the road is either owned by CDOT or it's owned by the city of Colorado Springs or Monument, whoever it is. And then we'll reach out to that municipality, whoever the owner is, to let them know that there is a concern. And then we'll also let the citizen know that we do not own that, and also provide contact information to the citizen so that they can reach out as well.
Okay, I think that's great, because what that means is if someone uses Citizen Connect, it does not go into a black hole and just go nowhere.
No, sir, it does not. And the reason we asked to get Citizen Connect is because we can actually provide the actual answer to the question versus conjecture and hearsay, which very often happens on Facebook, whatever the name is there.
Yeah,
So-
thank you.
And I have one more question along those lines, although I don't want to get too much down the rabbit hole here. But even once those roads have been accepted by the county as our responsibility, can you describe in 20 seconds the prioritization of arterials, hospital routes, and then neighborhood roads as well?
Yes, Madam Chair. So we have priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. Priority 1 are our main arterials. Examples of that would be things like Woodman Road, Mark Sheffel Road, Hodgen Road, Black Forest Road, the main arterials that we have throughout the county. Priority 2 are the collectors, are the roads that you would leave your neighborhood and get on to get you to a priority 1 road. Priority 3 is going to be all your residential neighborhoods and cul-de-sacs. Per our resolution from it just escaped me, I believe it's 2009, it's old, it's an older resolution, that there's no requirement for us to go in unless there's greater than 3 inches of snow. The other thing too is we do not have a bare pavement policy. We do not plow all the time down to the road on gravel roads. We do not plow down to the gravel because we don't want to destroy the road. And then on top of that too, the other thing that people that have moved into this area from out of state need to understand that we get our roads to a condition of to where they are passable for winter driving conditions. Passable for winter driving conditions does not mean you can still drive the posted speed limit. It doesn't mean that you can follow closely, and it does not mean that whatever tires you have on your vehicle are adequate. You have to have you have to have the correct tires on your vehicle, and as a resident, your responsibility to purchase a vehicle that is suitable for winter driving. That's another thing too as well that I think is very much lost. I think when people move in from out of state, there's an expectation that our roads will be bare, that is when we do snow removal, and that's just simply not the case.
Thank you. Just one quick follow on. So to put this development application that's in front of us in perspective, Volmer is probably a priority 2 collector.
That'd be a priority 1. Volmer's a 1.
It is. Okay,
Yes.
great. Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the one more question. So if these houses, for some reason, were built before the Janes development to the east and before the Briargate Parkway extension, you're going to have a lot of cars going through Volmer and Black Forest. Now, Volmer and Black Forest is currently being upgraded. That intersection is owned by the city, correct?
I'm sorry, say it again. Which intersection did you say?
Volmer and Black Forest Road.
Yes, that's owned by the city. Yes.
Okay. And I haven't looked at the recent map of the upgrade, but do we think that it could handle this kind of traffic coming down through there?
I travel that intersection every day.
Okay.
And I will be honest with you, even with the construction today, was the quickest I have been able to get through that intersection since they began construction, back when there were no lights on Black Forest. There's now the turn lanes when you're coming south on Black Forest are now 2 left turn lanes to get on Woodman Road, where before it was only 1. And that's going to change the dynamic of that intersection exponentially.
Okay.
And it's making
I
it much
know
easier.
that that's a Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority project, so thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, is there another question? I'm sorry, I went longer than 20 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that complete staff's presentation, Ms. Parsons?
Yes, Chair, but I'd like to add on to the answer. With the preliminary plan approval for Homestead North, filing 1 and 2, your staff did require construction drawings for that section of Briargate Stapleton corridor connecting to Volmer as it goes south into Sterling Ranch Road. So I believe we are near approval, and so that should be constructed very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with the completion of staff presentation, we will now begin the public input process of this hearing. We will start with those in support and then move on to those in opposition, at which time the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal and to answer any questions, and that will complete the end of the public hearing phase. So just to get an idea of timing, I did understand that perhaps there was the donation of time for a single presentation on one side. So just to get a show of hands, how many people are here? We will start with support. How many people are here to testify in support of the item? Okay, and none online? In support? Okay, no. And how many in opposition? Okay, great. And 1 online? Okay, 2. So do I understand that there's an organized presentation with donation of time here? Okay. If I can have those of you who are selected to come and speak on behalf of, actually, I'll get to that in just one more second. I'll make another call for those in support. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application in support of? And none online? Okay, hearing none. I will have those who have been selected to speak on behalf of those in opposition to approach the podium, sign in, state your name and address. Tell us if you are here with an organization or whom you're representing, and if you've been donated a certain amount of time by the others in the room. Thank you. And it's 3 minutes per person, so we'll adjust the clock as we know
Yes,
How
ma'am.
many you're representing?
As I understand it, I'm here to represent myself and for time purposes, 8 other individuals. So I presume 24 minutes. I don't expect to speak that long. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, staff, and audience. My name is Joe Tran, and please excuse my attire. I am here as a private citizen, not as a federal employee or office holder. I'm here to speak on behalf, I was nominated by my neighbors. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, to represent the 30 families, 60 individuals who live at the retreat at Timber Ridge. And we're here just to express our concerns with this rezoning effort. Homestead North and that particular, these proposals for rezoning to RS 6000. And of course, we had a lot of consternation between 60 adults and their concerns and complaints. And so I've tried to best represent my neighborhood as best as possible by just bringing up 3 major concerns in the interest of time. And the very first concern is obviously the 2 dwellings per acre on a now 40-acre lot as proposed. I'll tell you that as homeowners, when we approach the builders and we research the map, the sketch plan as presented by the applicant, it showed 2 dwelling units per acre. And maybe shame on us for not maybe understanding diagrams very well, but as presented on the sketch plan, it said 2 DU/per acre for 38 acres. And then given that the retreat at Timber Ridge was a different size neighborhood than the, in terms of lots relative to Sterling Ranch, what we were told by the builders is the homes that would be, the lots that would be there would be 12,000 square foot plus lots, similar to what we purchased in our neighborhoods. And so come to find out, in our, math as we're, investing in our homes, 2 dwelling units per acre over 40 acres means 80 homes minus whatever land you need for the tracks, the easements, the roads. So we were really only thinking there would be 40 some odd-ish homes in the same size lots that we are already living in. And I would like to clarify that we're not opposed to new homes. That would make us hypocrites, right? We live in this new neighborhood. We all moved from wherever we moved from. But the reality is that what we were presented and what we understood was very different than what is being proposed right now. RS 6000, I mean, yes, you have 1.8 dwellings per acre, but that's on actually 21 acres of actual residences. So that's more than 2 dwellings per acre if you look at it from our point of view. So that's one of our concerns is like we didn't expect there to be 77 homes. We expected to be 30 to 40 homes of similar size. And that was what our concern was. We wanted to, preserve that type of density, I guess you could say, that we bought into. And I know other neighbors are complaining about their views and all that, but as mentioned previously by the applicant, we understand that the views were not protected. We don't care about the views. We care about the density as the commissioner mentioned, going out POCO. 77 homes, 2 to 3 cars per home. That's a lot of new cars going out POCO and Vollmer. And if you've ever driven that road, people haul butt north on Vollmer. And then they only really stop, if they stop, at Burgess. That is a gnarly intersection. Anyone who lives in Black Forest, that is not a safe road per se. And there have been a lot of times, the driving habits of the people that live in that neighborhood is I think a little bit more aggressive than what I think we would like it to be. So that's our first major concern. Our second major concern is that the homeowners were supposed to be notified of these meetings, of the proposed rezone, and according to individuals who've spoken with the county did present signs and publish the meeting in the Gazette, and sent letters to the neighbors. But while this may have met the letter of the law, I don't believe it really met the spirit of the intent of these letters, right? 8 letters were sent out, 7 were sent to developers. Only 1 went to one actual homeowner. And when we asked about that, the county representative said, well, your home doesn't abut the property, but I would argue it does abut the property because it's using the road that we use to get out, which is POCO. And it does affect our ability to commute down Vollmer. It does affect our ability to get in and out of the neighborhood. You know, our second concern is that we would ask that the county maybe, you know, do a little bit better to communicate with the homeowners, because we feel like we weren't really protected in the interests of the county, or at least represented well. The other onus of this is that the builders do send out through the Metro newsletter or what have you, through the HOA. It's not an HOA, it's a Metro district. A newsletter, but unfortunately most of us moved in the fall and we didn't get these newsletters. The last one that most of us got was in January, and that was only because we were kicking and screaming like, hey, like we weren't notified that you were guys gonna present all this rezoning plans and what you're gonna do for this lot, essentially within our neighborhood. And then finally, the third major concern that the director of Public Works, I think he addressed a variety of our concerns, especially with the snow plowing and all of that. And I think that's relatively clear now. Our biggest concern that the commissioner also shared was, hey, we were under the understanding that the community had been turned over to the county, had been accepted by the county. And so, you know, if X amount of snow comes down, there should be a plow, or, you know, some kind of snow removal, and none of that happened. And that's caused issues in our neighborhood. And, you know, it's to the point where the drains have iced over. And so when we addressed the county, not personally myself, but other neighbors use Citizen Connect, they felt like they were being blown off because the community hadn't been accepted by the county yet, and it still belongs to the developer. And so we went around the circle and tried to find a developer, and it sounds like one of the representatives from Classic has acknowledged that it was overlooked and they're going to fix it. So I would, I present that because I want that to be a matter of record, that they will do something about it, because we'll live in perpetual buck passing. Oh, it's the county's job. Oh, it's the developer's job. Like, well, we're going to be in development for 5,000 more homes for the next 20 years. Like, we don't want to sit in a place where we can't even get out of our driveway because our drains have frozen over and there's 6 inches of ice in certain parts of the street. And that's a hazard. And then there are other concerns, again, I am compiling generalizations from 60 different, adults and residences of our neighborhood, of how civil services, i.e. the sheriff's department, fire, et cetera, can be able to keep up with the growth. We understand that that Black Forest and Sterling Ranch will grow. I don't think there's opposition to that. I think our concern is, as we're already growing, we're already having issues. How does the county and the developer, what do they plan to do to make things better so that it doesn't actually get worse? And right now we, with the water studies and the drainage concerns, I think some of those are a little bit more optimistic than what is actually reality. There have already been neighbors who have experienced issues with, these are brand new homes, getting water, and they have dirt in their water heater. These are homes that are less than 3 months old. So there are issues, while they may not be widespread and they may be anecdotal, cannot say that word, anecdotal, there are issues. And we're worried that those issues will become exponential as we build, hundreds and hundreds of more homes across these PUDs in East Timber Ridge and Sterling Ranch. And so Those are our three main concerns. Just to recap, what we were presented by developers does not actually meet what we expected. Our expectations could be wrong, but when you put 2 dwelling units on 1 acre and there's 40 acres, right? You subtract the tracks and all the other land for roads, that's 40 to 50 homes, not 77 on 6,000 square foot lots. The second concern again is to address, the communication between the developer and the county. We just feel like, that wasn't really an earnest attempt, and, we didn't feel like we were represented well. And then finally, the third concern is as growth occurs, throughout Sterling Ranch and Black Forest, what services, will be impacted, and how are we going to address those? Barring any other questions from my fellow neighbors and yourselves, I conclude my brief. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions for this speaker?
I just have one question. Are you all on a water system or well water?
We are a mix, as I understand it. Those of us on the 12,000 plus square foot lots, the sub acreage lots are on the city water. And then those of us on the northern end, those bigger 1+ acre lots are on well water, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for coming, and thank you for your service. I got to tell you, in my 28 years of serving in the Air Force, I never went to a Board of County Commissioners meeting, so you've got me beat on that one right here.
Yeah, I actually had to skip a lot of work meetings to come here. I didn't have time to change.
So thank you for that. Tell me a little bit more, and I'm going to want to ask the same question of the developer and the staff. This notification, the letters part, and
Yes,
what
sir.
else was there? Were there any community meetings from the developer, or what else took place? Because you mentioned 8 letters, but only 1 went to an actual resident. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, sir. And this is coming collectively from my neighbors, right? So the sign was posted on the 2nd of January on the corner of Bulmer and Poco. If you've ever driven down that corner, you wouldn't see the sign because our neighborhood is, 2 or 3 blocks deep in. So you would miss the sign unless you actually walked out there, and very few people actually walk out there. So the sign was done correctly. The notification in the Gazette, I was told that this meeting was presented in the Gazette, though, I didn't even know what that was. I'm new to the area, right? And then finally, the letters to abutting neighbors, abutting properties. And I think this is where we have a point of contention, because we feel like this is kind of shady. 7 letters to people to homes that weren't occupied by homeowners or to developers. None of us in the retreat of Timber Ridge, save for 1, received a letter. And I'm assuming 8 letters were sent out because there's 80 homes, so 10% of the neighbors, but I could be wrong on that. That's just a presumption. I'm probably wrong. But yeah, it just, I just feel like it was really disingenuous that we didn't receive letters. How hard is it to send everybody a letter that lives there? So we just feel like we wouldn't even known about this meeting. And so for us to organize 60 adults in under 2 weeks to figure this out, and then, nominate a nervous guy to come up and speak on this podium, that was a lot of work for us to do, because we didn't know about any of this. And we had to spend a lot of time. That 87-page plan, I spent all weekend reading it just to try to understand the legalese of public works and drawings. That's not my field of expertise as an average private citizen. I'll tell you about satellites, but but yeah, so that was a big concern for us. The communication has got to be a little bit more earnest, is what we're asking for. And then, yeah, did I answer your question, sir?
No, I think so, and I will, when the time is right, I'll ask the same question of staff and the applicant.
Yes, sir.
About those notifications. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned that you have those who are on larger lots on individual wells, and then you said city water. I'm assuming you mean a metro district?
Yes, I believe we're part of those of us on the smaller lots are on a Metro District water.
What is the name of your metro district?
What is it? American? Okay.
Okay, so it will be served by the same metro district. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir, for taking the time out to come and talk to us. Are there any other speakers in opposition to this application?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Come on down, state your name, any organization or affiliation, and sign in. And you'll have your 3
Madam
minutes.
Chair, Commissioners, Mike Bush. I live on the 2.5 acre lot on the north edge of Poco Road, 10045 Aspen Valley Road. So I'm 2 houses away from Poco. As far as I know on communications, because they showed us the return receipts, our neighbor was the only house occupied that received a notification. So that was to answer your question, sir. So my big concern here is lack of transparency in communications. I moved here to Colorado Springs fall of '94, been here ever since. We moved up there to get off of a 6,000 square foot lot to occupy 2.5 acres. During this whole time, we were told these are currently zoned for 5 acre lots. I know that can change, but that's all we were told by the builders. Okay, so I'm just saying. So the thing on the signage, I never saw a sign posted at the corner of Volmer and Poco, ever. I saw last Wednesday it was moved to the edge of Aspen Valley Road and Poco, that T intersection. I saw them move it there after the local fire department was doing a training exercise. Just I was like, oh, they finally posted their notification. So that's one of my concerns. Another is concentrated development in key areas is going too quickly, this punch list learning. So it's very good that I was here for this meeting to actually get some actual stuff. My thing that I saw in an 84-page document that was emailed to me, it did not include a fire plan, wildlife and habitat impact thing, or on water. I noticed the county attorney, he did, said the quality was sufficient. But is that for well or city water or the Metro District? Because I'm on a well, and I see in other parts of this county that their wells right now are not being replenished because of things. So my thing is aquifer replenishment. Are we building too much on square footage to not allow water to seep into the ground, replenish the aquifers for me to get my water in the future? So that's my thing. We've heard, and I got 38 seconds, but we keep hearing differences on square footage of land. We got an email from the CEO of Classic Homes, said the square footage is over 12,000 square foot lot size. Then here during this conversation, I've heard it's going to be 1.8 dwelling units per average, which then is 6,000 feet. Then in another comment, it's 9,000 feet. I'm just looking for ground truth here. What's going on? I'm not too big on views, because if people plant trees, it's going to block your view anyways. So my time is up. Questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions for this speaker? Okay, hearing none. Are there any other citizens who wish to speak in opposition of this application? Come on down, ma'am. State your name.
Hello, my name is Angelica Bush, and I've never really spoke publicly, so please forgive me if I'm a little nervous. So my name is Angelica Bush, and I'm going to read from my statement. And I live on a rural lot at 10045 Aspen Valley Road. That is my husband who just spoke. And in our street, we're about 10 families, and we're a pretty tight-knit community on that street. That means we all live north, almost adjacent to Homestead North filing number 3. I know I speak for many of us when I say that we understand that the 40-acre parcel will be developed, but we do have concerns, and mainly it's traffic and safety. Aspen Valley Road will be the only north-south road through that entire new neighborhood. On the south, it will come out onto Volmer, and on the north, it will come out onto Poco. As we heard today, there will be 727 additional daily trips for this one tiny intersection. Our portion of Aspen Valley currently is very quiet, and we don't even have sidewalks. We do have a lot of very young kids in our street with Aspen Valley coming out of the new neighborhood onto Poco. There is going to be a tremendous increase in traffic. Originally, Aspen Valley continuing north was a dead-end street, but it's now open going to Falcon. And so our concern is that people will use Aspen Valley as a cut through to Falcon instead of using Volmer. So the safety of our neighborhood is being threatened, we feel. And before my husband and I moved on to Aspen Valley, we had the exactly same scenario in our old neighborhood. We lived on a cut-through street that people were not supposed to use, but everyone did. So I personally know the impact of what can happen. So we all would prefer that the new neighborhood on the 40 acres does not come out onto Poco. And I understand there have to be two ingresses and egresses, but there has to be some other way to have the only north-south corridor come out directly in kind of flowing into our street. And we believe that the statement we heard that 77 homes are going to come, and of course that has to be because otherwise there wouldn't be roads. Well, let's just make less homes. Why not have larger lots and have less homes? Let's say have 50 homes instead of 77. So I do think that it comes down to someone wanting to make as much money as they can, but not considering the adjacent neighborhoods. And lastly, I also wanted to say that we have pronghorns out there and that wildlife is not minimal and their living space needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this speaker? Okay, thank you. And in the room, are there any more people wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Okay, seeing none, I do believe we still have two available online, Blake? Just one, okay.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, welcome. You are live being broadcast into the Board of County Commissioners hearing room. I understand you are here to speak in opposition to the application we have in front of us.
Yes.
If you would, please state your name and any affiliation you have, and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. You may begin.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Vice Chair, fellow commissioners. My name is Jennifer Hughes, and I'm the owner of 1004 Aspen Valley Road. My home is on the corner of Poco and Aspen Valley, right across the street from the proposed development on the acre lot. We own 2.7 acres on that land, and I'm going to kind of go into what Angelica just kind of went into. I'll make this really quick. I do understand the need for development. I believe fellow neighbors have hit the portion and I support. However, I request the board is in a little different than the rest of the neighbors. I'm here to represent acre lots who all currently live on Aspen Valley Road. We all have paid close to more than $1 million for our homes to live on a private street and have land with homes. The current proposal spits out this phase of Sterling Ranch right at Poco and Aspen Valley. And this will make Aspen Valley a thoroughfare to Falcon, Black Forest, and you can even use it to hit Stroop up to I-25 and everywhere north. If the proposed 77 plus homes, plus whatever else can filter in from the other two phases of Sterling Ranch can cut through, they will cut through right through where we live on Aspen Valley Road, which is currently not developed to handle that. They can cut through to Aurora Road and head out to Falcon and other areas. We know that it's not supposed to be a cut through, but as you know, it's human nature to take the path of least resistance. So I asked the board to not allow an exit at the Sterling Ranch Homestead Phase 3 to shoot out onto Poco and Aspen Valley Road. We paid a substantial amount of money not to have a road that has potential to become a main thoroughfare. I have a 3-year-old, and as Angelica said, most of the homes on the street have kids less than 10. Not to mention, it was Classic's choice not to put sidewalks on our streets, which makes this incredibly unsafe to add a direct output of over 400 homes onto Aspen Valley Road. I just ask that you consider, if you have little ones or even elderly parents and no sidewalks to walk on, would you want a residential area the size of Sterling Ranch to exit onto your private residential road? These are two separate neighborhoods, the retreat at Timber Ridge and Sterling Ranch homesteads. Let's keep them that way. If you take a look at their proposal for Classic has proposed, if you take a look, at the proposal that Classic has proposed for James property across the street on Vollmer Road, they have managed to split the neighborhood for both entrance and exits onto Vollmer. What is what I'm asking for this proposal? Please don't allow Aspen Valley to be the through fair road. It is not safe and respectively not what we paid for when we put a significant amount for the privacy and safety. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any others wishing to speak on this item? Okay, with that, we will move on to the applicant rebuttal portion. We could have the applicant come up and respond to some of these comments or give us any more information you may have.
Yes, I will try to respond and give some information as well. So density was the first item that came up, and the 2 dwelling units per acre. The suggestion was, and I'm struggling with this, the suggestion was at 2 dwelling units per acre, there was an expectation that there would be 40 lots. On a 40-acre site, that's a 1 unit per acre density. So it is fundamentally just simple math. If you apply a 2 unit per acre density to a 40-acre parcel, you will get 80 lots. If the expectation was 40 lots, that would be a 1 unit per acre density, which is not what was shown on the sketch plan. So I don't understand how that was the expectation. In terms of the expectation that they will be 12,000 square foot lots, and I do want to clarify, I think it was Mr. Bush who said he'd heard different things about the size of the lots. So let's clarify, the average size of the lots is 0.28 acres, which is 12,400 square feet. That's the average of the 77 lots. That's if you divide 77 into the 40 acres. The smallest lots, of which there are about 5 in the 77 lots, are about 9,000 square feet. And then they go up to half-acre lots on the northern side. So there is a transition in density and lot size specifically from the south, where it transitions from Homestead Finding 2, which has smaller lots, to the north to Poco, where it has the half-acre lots along the boundary. So I just wanted to clarify the different information that was coming across in terms of the lot size. It has been consistent, but Mr. Stimple's letter said 12,400 square foot lots on average. That was the average size. So, and to just really clarify, the only way you can get to a 40-acre lot assumption would be a miscommunication or a misassumption that it was 1 unit per acre. It isn't, it's 2 units per acre. It always has been. I'm not going to comment on the snow removal again. That is not part of this project. We spent a lot of time talking about something that's actually not a part of this particular project. Public notification, I will let county staff talk from their perspective. Mr. Bush actually lives in, as based on what I could find with the assessor, in this parcel here. We are only required to, per code, notify immediately adjacent properties. In some instances, those will be properties that are actually owned by the developer because they're part of the development. So we take the parcel, the entire parcel that we are proposing the rezone or the preliminary plan on, and just have to notify those adjacent properties. If the county commissioners feel that that notification process isn't adequate, then there is a process by which the Land Development Code could be amended to extend that. But as it stands today, and as it has been since I've been working in association with the Land Development Code, it has always been immediately adjacent owners. That never usually stops the word getting out to a broader audience if there's something that people are concerned about. But no, we didn't have, and because I anticipate in the question, we didn't have a community meeting because we had no letters of objection during the process. The first objections we saw were just prior to Planning Commission or at Planning Commission. And we didn't actually believe it was necessary because we weren't proposing anything other than what was already approved on the sketch plan. We weren't changing anything. So we weren't changing anything from the well-established sketch plan density and the planned development that has been in that area since 2008. So we didn't feel the need to anticipate neighbourhood concerns because it was consistent with what had been provided to the neighbours in terms of the sketch plan hadn't changed. As Ms. Parsons noted, we have done a couple of amendments to the sketch plan. It has never changed anything in this area on this parcel. Just clarification on the water, and I think that you possibly got there through the discussions, but the 2.5 acre plus lots within the retreat at Timber Ridge are on well water. The smaller lots are on the FAWA, Falcon Area Water and Wastewater Authority's water system. Regarding Mr. Bush's concern about the impact on well water that they have, that well water is tapped from much shallower aquifers than the water that is providing water to FAWA. That comes from wells which are in the northern part of El Paso County. They go into much deeper aquifers, so the two do not correlate in terms of impact of using urban water services, service providers, and wells. Finally, I think the only other thing I wanted to address, and I don't think I've got a map, unfortunately, in my presentation that shows it really well, but there was a lot of comment by the last couple of presenters about cut-through traffic on Aspen Valley. So this is Aspen Valley. So the suggestion was that people from this development or even further south will go north onto Aspen Valley to get to Falcon. That's what I heard. If you go north on Aspen Valley, you get to Arroyo Lane. Arroyo Lane dead ends to the east. It does not connect. It goes to a private road, and it does not connect to Falcon or anywhere east. The only place you would go if you went north on Aspen Valley is to Arroyo. Then you would have to turn left and go onto Volmer. And the question I would have is, why would anybody do that if they can turn left on Poco to go to Volmer, or even go south, get onto Volmer on that intersection that is just to the south of here in Fighting 2, or take Aspen Valley all the way down. It then connects to Wheatland and gets to Briargate. That is the way you would go to Falcon, not now because it doesn't connect, but in the future, that is the way you would go to Falcon. Right now, you'd have to go all the way south. Actually, very shortly, you'll be able to get onto Mark Shuffle and go down to Woodman Road. That connection is going to be constructed soon to go east of Falcon. But in the future, the quickest route will be on Briargate, connecting to the east to Meridian Road. So there is no reason why anybody from this development would go north on Aspen Valley at all. It won't take them anywhere. It will, however, be much more convenient in the future for the residents to the north to travel through this development and through the whole of Homestead North to get to Briargate Parkway to then go east or west, quite frankly, east on to Falcon or west into the city. So I was really baffled by that suggestion. I couldn't understand where the neighbours were thinking that people would go to get to Falcon by going north on Aspen Valley. It goes to Arroyo Lane, and that's really as far as it goes. So with that, I think I have answered all the comments that I wanted to. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Oh, Lauren Moreland from Classic Woodlights.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Lauren Moreland, I'm a Vice President with Classic Homes and Project Manager for this area we're talking about today. So it's noted that SR Land and Classic SRJ are the applicants on this particular application. And so we are now, Classic SRJ, Classic Homes is majority stakeholder in Sterling Ranch Development We are also the developer of Retreat at Timber Ridge. We are the one working through the application process on the James parcel. We've also worked through another project to the east, the ranch, which has been through sketch plan. And so completely involved in this entire area. And so I wanted to get up and talk a little bit about traffic because I know that was questioned by you, Commissioner Williams, in regards to Black Forest and Volmer and some of the issues with congestion down there. And so we recently went through a sketch plan amendment for Sterling Ranch. And when you go through a sketch plan amendment, we had to revise our master traffic impact study, collective for the area. So originally when this was approved back in 2008, so those studies, initial master traffic impact studies were probably conducted 2005, 6, 7. If there were any other amendments done, which I believe in 2016 there was one, there will be revisions. Well, now with us being the master developer, we've been able to better understand what the overall master plan is going to be, what lot layouts are going to be. Not that they can't change in the future with rezones or amendments to the sketch plan, but to the best of our knowledge today, we went through and we've had a full master traffic impact study just recently revised, which ties to this application. We also had to do a master traffic impact study that ties to the James parcel. And so all of this coincides. We also have a development agreement with El Paso County in regards to timing for specific improvements associated with Volmer and or Mark Shuffle connection, eventually the Briargate connection that will be an east-west corridor from I-25 all the way to Meridian Road. Currently, we'll be building that in segments in conjunction with filings or phases that we build. So I wanted to touch on that has been studied. I'm not a traffic expert. I'm not a water expert, but we do pride ourselves in hiring those experts that we really entrust that they're going to give us the information and frankly give your staff and the information they need. So wanted to touch on that. And then Commissioner Vanderwerf, I know you touched on what if Homestead North 3 elects to jump ahead of Homestead North Filing 2 or Filing 1. And not that that can't happen, and there's processes for emergency access points, but as a rule, your utility extensions, as we work from a Filing 1, 2, 3, your utility extensions follow, whether that's water, wastewater, gas, electric, communications, all of that coincides. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to jump from a Filing 1 to a Filing 3 or 4, because we're planning that out, and when it's working through civil engineering, those connection points, we're going to work through that, so we're extending utilities. I think Andrea touched on the notifications in regards to the various studies. Wildlife study was brought up, fire. Obviously, we have to get basically a will serve letter from fire and or the utility providers, Mountain View Electric, Black Hills Energy, and or CSU Electric or CSU for gas. And so that's all provided as part of our application and reviewed prior to making it before you today. So I don't know that there was anything else that Andrea didn't touch on that I haven't. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. And so is there anything else from the applicant at this time? Okay, great. With that, I will declare this portion of the public hearing closed and bring it up here for comments from the commissioners.
Madam Chair, I just had that question I wanted to ask staff about the notifications. And maybe that's what you're going to answer here.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Megan Harrington, and for the record, I'm your 9 days in Planning Director. While I will rely on staff for the technical details of the project, I did want to comment on notification. Staff is following the code basically down to the letter, and the code related to notifying adjacent owners has not changed since at least, I would say, 2007. However, there are some things that we can do in the interim until we're able to look at notification. We can address where the posters go. Based on the size of the project, we can require multiple posters. And perhaps it is time, I was taking notes just related to questions that come up from commissioners. Perhaps it is time to look at notification. With more urban level development occurring in unincorporated El Paso County, perhaps adjacent doesn't cover enough neighbors. And that's something we can definitely look at internally. From the perspective of internal notification and notice when the application comes in, staff is probably just finding this out as I tell you, but I think it's a good process to ensure that when we send that initial notification at submittal and a citizen responds, that we include them through the process via email. And that's what we'll do moving forward. My understanding is we did not receive initial emails from citizens, but in the future, when we do, those citizens will be wrapped back in as resubmittals are submitted to the department. We will have an email notification that will go out and ensure that they're following the process. And I believe that if there's, Carrie did have one traffic note to add. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for that. How does it feel 9 days in?
So far, so good. I'm just glad you asked a general question that I could answer.
And I actually do appreciate your willingness to, I mean, meeting the letter of the law, meeting the statute is great because we have to, and we work very hard for that. But in some cases, it does seem right to go past that because it might not always, get us to making sure we have openness and transparency. So I appreciate your willingness to look more into that. The other one also is with regard to the signs. I know those signs get posted. I don't know about everybody else's experience, but in our very, very busy lives, you see the sign on the side of the road. You don't have time to read, the print, and I don't know if there's a way to, I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but making the sign like really ridiculously big, so long as it doesn't involve a safety issue. Sometimes that can be of great benefit too, because, we have busy lives. We're going up and down these roads. We're commuting to and from work and stuff. Sometimes it's hard to see those signs.
Absolutely, Commissioner. We will look at all of that. I will tell you that in my experience, no matter how large the sign gets, sometimes we often miss it because we're not looking for that. But there are ways that we can improve upon that communication. Give me a little bit of time to determine all of the ways that we're reaching out to your constituents, and then we will ensure that we can plug some of those holes and look at the code moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ms. Parsons.
Oh, sorry, Blake, I'm going to ask for the overhead. I'm going to go a little old school here. We might have to dim the lights on the podium. They're really bright, and maybe that's why. It's okay. With permission, I can try to pull up the traffic study. There's a great graphic in the application's traffic study. If you bear with me, I can go to eDARP and grab that sheet since the overhead is not working. Is that okay with permission? Thank you, Vice Chair. I got a head nod there. A great demonstration on how to use eDARP, by the way. Okay, sorry about that delay. I just wanted to point out for the audience and the commissioners a graphic from the traffic study that the applicants submitted. Your staff did review. The applicants addressed those comments, and this is going to be the approved traffic study for this preliminary plan and rezone application. So again, filings 1 and 2 here to the south, the proposed filing here. Would like to show the commissioners and the audience that Poco Road and Vollmer is anticipated to be a full movement intersection. Sam Bass Drive is also proposed to be a full movement intersection. This roadway down here is actually only a right-in, right-out. And then as they come down to Wheatland Drive to this principal arterial known as the Briargate Stapleton Parkway corridor, this will be right-in, right-out, driving a majority of the traffic to Vollmer to go north and south, and then Briargate Parkway to go west. So it is not anticipated this traffic would go through the existing neighborhood to head north. It would be more logical that they would actually shoot to the west and get right on Vollmer Road, which is that arterial roadway, and head north or south. Are there any questions on the traffic as it is anticipated to be projected based on the applicant's traffic study? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to provide some clarification there.
Do we have any other questions or discussion up here?
I just wanted the last question for staff. It's been mentioned a couple times, but so this was already an previously approved sketch plan, and for that area, it was an average of 2 units per acre, and this meets that criteria at 1.8, correct?
Correct. The applicant is actually proposing slightly less than 2 dwelling units per acre, Commissioner.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have a couple comments here and then I'll make a motion. But could I request that the criteria be put back up on the screen? Thank you. Here we have very specific criteria that we're looking at on approval of these, and I really appreciate the full amount, the full amount of participation today. Obviously, some folks that are newer to these hearings, I'm glad that you were able to come and see this process and participate in this process. I love the discussion around notifications and looking at just how we can better serve citizens in our community. So this has been a great opportunity to interact with a lot of folks, and I do appreciate that. But ultimately here, our decisions and the reason that these are quasi-judicial land use hearings has to do with this criteria for approval. So this is what we're looking at. And it's important for us to remember that, of course, we want to be transparent. We want to make sure that the community has the opportunity to weigh in on these. But ultimately, this criteria is what determines whether or not this land use should be approved. And so, through listening to the concerns, comparing them with this criteria, I think it's pretty clear, though there may have been misunderstandings and there may have been some confusion, I think it's actually clear that the landowner has met this criteria for approval. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and move approval of, can we do both items together? Or do we need separate motions?
Actually, Madam Vice Chair, I think that separate motions would be appropriate for this. Do the rezone followed by the preliminary plan.
Okay, so I will go ahead and move approval of item 6, the map amendment rezone with any conditions and notations.
I will second.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion or comments? Okay, I'll call Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so again, it comes down to criteria. So I definitely appreciate all the comments. Several years ago, I don't know if it was the project north of this, but in this area, I went through the same thing and I voted against one of those projects for the density. But that's because it was an original rezoning into the high density. Here, I'm looking at criteria that says the density that they're requesting is in conformance with what was already previously approved, where in this other example, it was taking something from a much larger and then asking for density. So those arguments are valid arguments, but this has already been pre-approved. So that, again, we have to stick to the approvals. The other thing I did find also compelling was the traffic study. In my driving through that area, I normally do see congestion, but then our director of transportation, our public works, indicated that that had been corrected because of the upgrades to the roads. And so my other concern was the traffic, but it has been addressed by staff. And so I'll be supporting.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, that has been moved and seconded. I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye, sorry.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. And just with the hope that those that have responsibilities for those roads before they get turned over to the county, that they will plow them. I know that might not be necessarily a consideration on this project, but it is important and it's a safety issue. And I think the developers do have those obligations. So I would encourage them to meet those obligations until the roads are turned over. Having said that, I vote aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Item number 6 passes 5-0. Item number 7, which is the preliminary plan. Do we have any discussion on this item? I'll go ahead and make some quick comments, and that is a real thank you to those of you taking time out of your life and your work to come and passionately and eloquently and succinctly let us know kind of where the pains and hurts are. And I think you've heard today that there's an indication of some quality improvement process going on right here. And, you know, we wouldn't be able to continually improve without the input of citizens that care enough to come before us as well. So I just wanted to say that very quickly. So thank you. And with that, do I hear a motion on item number 7?
I'll move approval of item 7.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, that has been moved and seconded. I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Madam Chair, I think we have Ms. Segal approaching.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I would ask the motion maker to please include findings of water sufficiency with this preliminary plan, as well as any conditions and notations in the staff report, if you agree with those.
Yes, ma'am. So moved and added.
And the seconder agrees.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I will begin again and call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. And thank you for your patience in that procedural deal. Yes, with that, we've had a break requested, and we will come back and resume item 8 at 3:15. Okay. I will call this meeting back to order. We are on item number 8.
Item number 8, appeal of an executive determination to authorize litigation, 6925 Chippewa Road, an appeal by Carrie Anderson and Jonathan Cadieux of a decision made by the interim executive director of the Planning and Community Development Department, PCD, to issue an executive determination authorizing the Office of the County Attorney to proceed with litigation for violations of Section 5 of El Paso County Ordinance Number 18-02, prohibiting the accumulation of rubbish, and Sections 5.2.42B2, inoperable vehicles and vehicle parts, and 11.3.1, unlawful acts of the El Paso County Land Development Code. Pursuant to Section 7 of Ordinance Number 18-02 and Section 11.3.2, enforcement procedures of the Land Development Code, at the hearing, the property owners shall have the opportunity to present evidence and testimony to show cause why further enforcement action should not be taken. The board shall consider all such evidence offered by PCD in reaching its decision to affirm or overturn the decision to issue the executive determination. The 7,900 square foot property is zoned RS 5000 residential suburban and is located west of Peterson Road and southwest of the intersection of Chippewa Road and Noble Street. Parcel number 504 or 54082-04-004. Commissioner District Number 2, APPCE 22-002, continued from December 6, 2022. Joe Letke, Code Enforcement Supervisor, Planning and Community Development.
Good afternoon, Board. Terry Sample on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. At this point in time, we need some direction from the board. Sorry, I feel like that's very loud. I'm a loud talker anyway. Here's the status of what's going on with the appellant. We have given her plenty of notification of today's date as it was read. This was supposed to be on last month's land use calendar. We moved it to this month. Mr. Letke has been in communication with her regarding this date. Blake has been in communication with her regarding today's date, how she was going to be contacted regarding this hearing. We then contacted her 6 more times with no response. Finally, we got a text message that says, "I apologize, there was a situation I am dealing with at the moment." Mr. Letke responded with, "Hello, this is Code Enforcement Supervisor Joe Letke. Are you withdrawing your appeal request?" She responds, "I'm dealing with a situation that needs my attention. I'm not withdrawing anything." At this point in time, it would be my position that since she was given plenty of notice and plenty of opportunities, that this be deemed a withdrawal of her appeal.
Okay. So does that require, let's discuss that up here, but I also would like the county attorney to address what action that means we take or don't take today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do believe that it would require a vote to deem the appeal abandoned, which I do believe is an appropriate course going forward. I think that the due process has been met as far as this individual. They've received adequate notice and an opportunity to be heard. They've not exercised that opportunity. The board also has the discretion to continue the matter another time if it wished to do so. However, that's what Ms. Sample is requesting, is that we deem this denied and abandoned, and that would be done by vote.
And Madam Chair, I believe that what that would mean, it would be, if that were to the pathway to go forward, it would be a motion to deny the appeal. Would that be accurate?
Commissioner, I believe that I would consider it a motion to deem the appeal abandoned due to her not appearing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because this is in my district and I generally want to do everything that we can to give someone the benefit of the doubt. We've had situations where, it's been confusing whether, people understood the hearing, and I think that's a little bit of what happened last time when we decided to continue it. In this case, it does seem to me that, unfortunately, this individual has not given any kind of good reasoning on choosing to not appear at the last minute here. You mentioned that there were 6 attempts. What was the time frame of those attempts? Was that 6 attempts today? Okay, and then you also said that there had been regular communication leading up to today. Can you give me an idea of how many times there was communication and how you know that this individual was actually very much aware that this hearing was today?
Sure, Commissioner, thank you. We've sent notices of hearing to her. She also emailed me regarding her request to appear virtually, which she recognized that this is the dates of the hearing. I left her a voicemail this morning at approximately 9 a.m., just stating all the information regarding the hearing, calling in, and making sure her phone number is correct. And then Blake, if you could confirm this, you spoke with her at 1 p.m. Today regarding calling in this hearing.
And then final question here is, has there been any indication, I'm understanding that she's saying something came up, but is there any indication of any extenuating circumstances or emergency other than just this general that she's not able to make it?
Yeah. Commissioner, beyond these text messages, I'm not aware of any, emergency family situations beyond what she said, that I'm dealing with a situation that needs my attention. I'm not withdrawing anything. So that's my understanding of what the situation is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that, are there any other questions? I have one more clarification as well. This was, we authorized pursuit of litigation for code enforcement violations, and it was the administrator, an administrative determination.
Yes, an executive determination was made by the director, and they are appealing that decision. So that's what's being appealed
So the
today.
onus is on the, it's not an applicant, on the appealant to be present. Otherwise, things carry on as they would through our normal process.
Correct.
Okay. Any indications from the board? Anyone ready to make a motion? Commissioner Geithner.
Madam Chair, given that the questions that we've asked, and that it absolutely seems as if we've given this individual every opportunity at this point, I would like to go ahead and move to deem the appeal abandoned.
And I'll second.
That has been moved and seconded. I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0 to consider this appeal abandoned, and there will be no action taken from this board on the appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Item number 9.
Item number 9 is department and committee reports and non-action items, and there are none.
Item number 10.
Item number 10 is the addendum. There's no addendum.
And item 11.
Item number 11 is the executive session. There's no request for executive session.
And with that, this land use meeting of January 17th is adjourned.